Welcome back to Alpha Mamas Get Obsessed with Success podcast, almost weekly but not quite, that's all right. Who is Alpha Mama and what are we all about? Alpha Mama brings you the lowdown on books that change your lives in the self-development space. We do the reading and research so you can sit back, listen and take the steps to live your best life and move towards a grounded life that reflects your authentic self. Growing up, I didn't feel like I had a lot of great guidance. The lack of guidance in my own life led me to make choices that accumulated in me hitting rock bottom by the age of 30. I felt like I had no one to turn to, and that is when I turned to books and researching how to live my best life. Fast forward almost a decade and I have experienced total transformation. At Alpha Mama, we believe it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. The only thing you need to succeed at your life is the belief that you can and the commitment to carrying through with backing yourself. A beautiful person once said to me, "Wherever I am is where I belong." And I believe that whatever it is that you desire is calling you, and the desire is an invitation for you to step into your power and step towards your best life and your most authentic self. So, this week, episode 14. So, as if you've been following along on the podcast, we have been going through a series of elements that I consider personally are essential elements to creating success in your life. And these are the three elements. So creating a compelling vision, something exciting, something that motivates you, that drives you forward. You need the dream. You need a really clear, compelling vision. Then you need self-discipline. You need the discipline to get you from A to B. How do I get to where I want to get? And then finally, financial abundance or resources. So abundance mindset. Other types of abundance might be social capital, all sorts. So abundance mindset. And so those are the three pathways that we look at. And last week we talked about cultivating a wild vision, and I did an amalgamation of a number of different books. We're now going to hone in a little bit more closely on one of those books, and today we're talking about wild discipline, because I'm doing a wild series. Now, if you've been following along, you'd know that we recently went on a 11-week road trip through the outback of Australia, through Western Australia. Basically, the number one thing I learned about Australia is that Australia is a giant desert, and we drove around like half of Australia, and pretty much half of Australia, the half of Australia that we drove around was like all desert. Just miles and miles and miles of desert, like you can't believe. And anyway, now we're back here in freezing cold Melbourne, and it is freezing cold at the moment. It's bitterly cold. And surely enough, within a week of being home, I was like, just take me back to the desert. So part of why I'm doing a wild series and what really compels me and gives me vision and makes me excited about life is this idea of wild vision, wild lifestyle, rewilding. And I think it's really on point after spending 2 years in lockdown in Melbourne, and a lot of people all over the world would have experienced to some degree a level of pretty full-on lockdown. We were, I think, one of the most lockdown cities in the world where we live. So we had something like over 230 days in what I call prison solitary confinement, where we were literally confined to our homes and we were not allowed to leave the house for anything other than essential services for more than 2 hours a day, and you couldn't go beyond 5 kilometres from your home. So it was pretty intense, and you were only allowed to meet up with one other person from one other household at a socially distanced level within your 5K zone to do 1 hour of exercise or something like that. So it was pretty full on. Anyway, so now we want to rewild ourselves. We are sick of being, under the thumb by the system, stuff the government, stuff being locked down in solitary confinement. Let's go and live life. We're all going to die one day. I don't want to waste another precious moment of my life living in lockdown. I just want to enjoy it and live wildly and be connected with other people and be connected with the land and be connected with this beautiful, amazing planet that we live on. And so that is what we're all about. So with wild discipline, which is what we're up to today, we are going to be looking at, we did briefly touch on Born to Run by Chris McDougall. So Chris McDougall last week, Chris McDougall is a journalist. He is also an avid runner, and he was inspired to write this book because he was into running, had some major foot injuries, and lo and behold, unfortunately, he was kind of told, oh, well, there's nothing you can do. You've just got to get these orthotics and suffer forever and a day, and that's your life from now on. And these were like words from the tops, podiatrists and surgeons and physios in the US. And Chris thought, oh gosh, surely this is a load of BS and I've got to find a way to hack the system. And he's a sports journalist, so he had written about a lot of athletes, and lo and behold, it turns out that statistically, so let's have a look, foot injury increase statistics over time. So it turns out that apparently there's an increase in foot injuries, and this has to do with the kinds of shoes that we wear. So the way that a normal shoe is designed apparently is basically it does the job of what our foot used to do. So it has the arch in it, it's got all this support, and it cocoons your foot in it, and then when you run, the shoe rather than your foot is actually doing the work that your foot should be doing. And so you're kind of, the muscles in your foot aren't building, and training in the way that they're meant to be training. Instead, they're being cushioned and padded by these shoes that act like a foot should be acting, and consequently our feet then lose that muscle power, and then lo and behold, over time there has been a super high increase in the amount of foot injuries that people have developed over a period of time. So I don't have the statistics right in front of me, but rest assured, look it up and you will discover that actually there has been a massive increase in foot injuries over time with regard to modern day shoes. Okay, so anyway, Chris, being a sports journalist, was looking for some off-the-shelf, off-the-cuff answers. Not off-the-shelf answers. He wanted something new and innovative and different, and he wanted answers that worked for him, and he wanted an alternative, and he wasn't ready to accept the professional advice that he'd gotten. So lo and behold, he comes across this legendary tribe in Mexico called the Tarahumara, and they're this tribe of super athletes who run barefoot mostly or with minimal footwear for 100 200, 300, up to 400 miles over a day or two. And they keep running until they're in their 90s just about, and everyone from down low, like very young to very old, can run these distances and run them really efficiently and effectively, and they have very few, if any, foot injuries whatsoever. And so Chris is like, well, hang on, I need to go find these tribal people in Mexico, in the canyons of Mexico, and work out what it is that they're doing that's so amazing. Why don't they have injuries? Why can they keep running forever? Obviously, you know, the narrative that we've been given isn't everything, and there's a lot more out there that's possible. And, you know, we have to remember that, yes, medical science is amazing, but it's not the be-all and end-all. There are alternatives out there. We are limited by the way that we look at things. We are limited by the way that we perceive life. And it's interesting because I recently watched this talk by Simon Sinek. If you know him, he's a business development coach and business mindset coach, I suppose. And he said exactly that in the video that I watched. You know, it all comes down to perspective. It all comes down to mindset. And so even when we're thinking about our medical system, you know, modern day medicine is based on this reductionist perception and this reductionist principle of science, where you're just treating an isolated part of the body and you're healing damage, rather than being proactive and looking at the whole human being and realizing that all the parts are connected and they work, and they actually impact each other. It's an ecosystem. The body is an ecosystem. But the way that modern medicine works is it has this reductionist perspective, and it just treats the thumb and not taking into consideration that actually there's a whole system that runs that, right? So how does all this relate to discipline? Well, I found the whole challenge of wild discipline interesting, because I thought, oh gosh, discipline, you know, like when we think about discipline, I think of like Navy SEALs, and I think of, schedule and routine and consistency and getting up and showing up and being accountable every single day. And there are a lot of ways that I've managed to create accountability in my own life, and often that comes with things like making a plan and then publicly sharing the plan, and then feeling the anxiety of being accountable to all the people that you've shared the plan with, which then, you know, instigates or, you know, gives you momentum to then stick to the discipline or the routine that you've set for yourself, you know, because you've got to show up and be accountable to everyone that you've promised to be accountable for. So whenever you see those like Instagram or Facebook things, and they're like, don't share your dreams with anyone, don't keep it all secret, and then build your empire and become amazing. Bomb, bomb. I think that is a misnomer, and it's a misguidance on how discipline works and how success works. Because unless you're vulnerable, and unless you're taking risks and you're putting yourself out there and you're willing to put your vulnerability on the line, you are not going to experience success. You are not going to experience that progression that you're seeking, or that self-discipline that you're seeking, because you've got no accountability. You don't need to be accountable for anyone if you don't make any commitments and you don't make any promises to anyone. Then you've got no one to show up for except for yourself. And so when you fail in secret. What is true accountability and what's true discipline is when you make public commitments and you show up and you fail and you humiliate yourself, and then you're so humiliated, you go, oh my God, I will never live this down. I have to now be successful. You've crossed over that line. You've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. You have committed 100%. That is when real discipline starts. That's when real success starts. That's when real commitment to whatever it is you're doing starts, because you believe in yourself, you're committing to yourself, you're committing to your dreams, and you are doing that publicly and openly and vulnerably, and you're willing to fail for what you believe in. That's when you know you're starting on the right foot, you know. Be vulnerable, because that vulnerability is the pathway to strength. It is the pathway to success, you know. That pain of suffering, of not being good enough, of being vulnerable, of people laughing at you, or, you know, maybe it will lead to, oh, I've got to up my game, I've got to improve. But unless you're honest and open, you will never ever see the reality. You'll never see the truth of what you're capable of, or see the shadow bits that you need to improve to actually get to where you need to get, because you're ignoring them and you're hiding them from everyone else. And so there's never going to be any accountability to show up, change, or improve in those areas that you don't like about yourself. So, you know, wake up, discipline, improvement, success, doing what you really love and care about in your life. These are hard, vulnerable pills to swallow. And unless you're willing to go through the fire, you're not going to reap the rewards. Unless you're willing to put your heart on the line, you're not going to experience the fullness that life has to offer, you know, because you've never lost anything, you've never felt pain, you've never tried anything, because you've never been vulnerable, you know. Having said all that, that sounds really hardcore. What I've come to realise recently, and what's really inspired me since I went on this road trip, and then this book, Born to Run, and the Tarahumara. The Tarahumara are amazing runners, and they run, you know, these 100, 200, 300, 400 miles. And they're amazing. They have races, but the races are just for fun. And one of their core principles is, when you race, when you do something like running, running has to be for fun. It has to be for the joy of running. It has to be like play. And there's a lady called Tara Wood. She runs a wild fitness school. I actually think she's sold her business now in Kenya. And she's the founder and the creator of this. It's called Wild Fitness. And she talks about, so in their thing, they rewild people, they get everyone to do barefoot running, they're swimming through creeks, they're lifting rocks and doing wild things. But one of the most important critical elements of her discipline training is fun. Animals have fun. You know, she has this amazing TED talk, I'm going to put it into the blog this week, and she talks about how, you know, when you put someone in front of a ball, they become wolf-like, and they, you know, they chase the ball, and the game becomes, you know, it's like wild and fun, and you've got that edge to you. And that's something, you know, like my partner and I have been just recently like swimming at the pool like 1 kilometre every morning. And one thing I've noticed, like going to the gym or going to the pool, or, you know, there are so many people there who are like, they treat fitness like work, and they go to the gym and they're like, oh, I'm going to power through this, and I've got to beat my time from yesterday, and they take things so seriously. And it's all like this really serious, you know, frustrating thing, and they've got to like get better, and they're like pushing themselves really hard. And I have recently adopted this attitude where I'm like, I will follow the fun. This has got to be fun for me. I've got to feel like a wild animal swimming through, the ocean, and I've got to feel the joy and the inspiration, and roll like an animal playing and have fun with people. And when I play football now, it's fun. It's not about something serious and bad, or something, like I'm trying to achieve goals. No, I'm having fun, and I'm connecting, and I'm a ball of energy, and I'm creating an excitement that is life and living, and it's compelling, it's fun, it's different, and that is something. So yes, when I think about what is the key factor of wild discipline and wild fitness, I actually think that out of all the things that I've come across, what really drives us and what really compels us and what really keeps us disciplined is fun. Because fun is compelling. We are, as humans, by nature, we have this inner child, and our inner child just wants to play, and we want to play with other people, and we want to have fun time. And, when we talk about finances and self-discipline in finances and creating abundance resource mindset, I'm actually going to revert back to, many of you would have heard of The Barefoot Investor next week, by Scott Peck. And one of the really interesting takeaways, one of the really interesting takeaways that I've taken out of The Barefoot Investor is when we talk about investing in money and saving money, what his strategy is write down and think about, what do I really value? What is fun? What do I love? What gives me joy in my life? What makes me excited? And it's not about, saving isn't about, in his spectrum, isn't about, cutting out and living a life of suffering and pain and not ever enjoying anything. It's instead, what he says is, only invest in what you love, only invest in the things that you really enjoy, and cut out everything else. And then when you put 100% into the love and 100% into things that make you happy and the things that give you joy, and you just let go of everything else, that is when the true rewards start coming in. That's when you start reaping the rewards. The other place that we see that is Oprah. What does Oprah say? Follow what feels right next, enjoy your life, follow the joy. You're designed in a certain way, and you have a certain skill set, and you're not meant to be good at everything. So just focus on the things that really give you love and really give you joy and bring happiness into your life. And don't worry about the other stuff. You know what? There are 7-9 billion people on earth. There are plenty of people out there to do the other things that you're not good at. But if you give 100% to the things that you really love, you'll find compelling motivation to create consistency, discipline, routine, showing up, accountability, ownership over the things that you love and who you are. Once you start to really connect with the things that you love in your life and then put 150% into that, that's when you're going to start seeing discipline show up in your life. And so that is the episode for this week, talking about wild fitness. And that was the key takeaway for me, one of the key takeaways for me about discipline, with the Tarahumara from Born to Run in Chris McDougall's book. And that is simply that they are all about fun, and running is all about fun, and the Tarahumara do what gives joy and what is fun. And that's the secret. to life and the secret to discipline, according to the Tarahumara, I think. They also drink their special beer, and they have parties, and they laugh, and they have fun, and they've got community, and it's amazing. So on that note, I'm going to finish the episode there and say, hey, self-discipline, what does it mean? It means having fun. It means being connected with your authentic self. It means enjoying life and connecting with others and having a sense of community and being compelled and excited about what it is that you're working towards, and that will keep you motivated and on track. So until next week we're going to be talking about wild finance and wild resources. I'm super excited to have you on board. Thank you for joining me again this week. Catch you later. Over and out.